welcome to another episode of What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? If this is your first time with us, we're so glad you're here. And do look back at the other episodes because they've been so cool and interesting. So many nice books. And also, just so you know, I'm Karen E. Osborne. If this is your first time, I am the author of Getting It Right and the upcoming book, Tangled Lies, a murder mystery that comes out in July. And I am so excited about our guest today. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about her, and then she's going to talk herself. So let me just tell you a little bit about her. Her name is Jenny Jaeckel. Yes?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good. and her most recent historical novel, which I have begun and am enjoying, is called The House of Rougeaux. And it is, listen to the description of it, is a family saga spanning 7 generations from a colonial era sugar plantation to civil rights era in Philadelphia. An intimate portrayal of survival and triumph, love and resilience. This is like the coolest part, with touches of magical realism. Now, don't you want to buy that book? Yes, you do. She has
Please
5
do.
additional books that are published, including a graphic novel memoir. Now, that's an interesting genre, and I can't wait to hear about that. Her upcoming book, which we are going to discuss today, is Boy Falling, and its release date is the same as mine, is July 22nd. Welcome, Jenny.
Thank you so much, Karen.
So now we've got them all teased and interested in wanting to hear about your books. But first, as we always start all of these episodes, can you
Mhm.
share a book that you have recently read that you just loved?
Yes, got it right here. So this is called Black is the Body. Just going to read the subtitle. Stories from My Grandmother's Time, My Mother's Time, and Mine
Mm.
by Emily Bernard. Emily Bernard is one of my favorite scholars. I first came across her work when I was doing research on the Harlem Renaissance, which was important to the novel Boy Falling that we'll be talking about. So, Black is the Body is personal essays, a series of personal essays. They're riveting. They tackle race and identity and much more in the context of interracial marriage. She's a Black woman married to a white man. She's a professor living in Vermont, teaching at a mostly white college and living in Vermont, which is very white. So there are essays about that. She and her husband adopted 2 twin girls from Ethiopia. There are a wonderful work about. It's just so broad. Um, One of the things that I'll just pick it up again. One of the things that really strikes me about these essays is she's a social scientist, so she studies um, social interactions that she lives, or she portrays them in a way that um, almost like a scientist, although they're personal and they're emotional. Um, Almost like a scientist, in that she's very meticulous about the many nuances of interactions, things that come up. Um, she's very honest about these interactions, including about ways that she wasn't maybe fully honest at the time, because in these interactions, you see she's negotiating such complex territory, and there are ways that it wasn't safe at the time for her to be honest about certain things. And so she really gives the reader, the whole view. And yeah, they're just beautiful,
Mm.
often painful, but beautiful essays.
That sounds wonderful. That sounds like something I would like very much to read.
I really
And
recommend it.
yeah, and do you have another recommendation for us?
I do. Um, okay, this is one of my all-time favorite books. The cover's a little weird in this edition. It's got a quote from the book. It's called Time of the Doves, by the Catalan writer Merce Rodoreda, who was one of the kind of preeminent writers in her language, from Catalonia. And this book, it's like one of the loves of my life. I have eternal love for this book.
Hmm.
This book is one of the reasons why I want to write. You know, those books that are
Yes.
like, they take your heart away. You're like, if I can do something like this in my lifetime, I will have, I don't know, done what I dreamed of or something. So, this book is about the life of a young woman, living before, during, and after the Spanish Civil War in Barcelona. And I love this book for many reasons. One is because it's so rich in detail, um, that it makes the story just absolutely vivid.
Mm.
But all the detail, every single detail is there for a reason, because every single detail illuminates the whole story, which is, mostly about her inner journey. And so I love writing that is rich in detail, but detail for reasons.
Yes.
They're there for a reason, right? So another reason I really love this book is that it doesn't just describe the material world, though it does that beautifully. It really illustrates her inner world. Um, Sometimes this involves dreams or altered states of consciousness that we might now call PTSD or other things. Um, so it's not exactly magical realism in this book, but it gets into, like our existence is so complex, right? Um, Things don't necessarily have to be quote unquote magical to, um, I think, to be a sort of realist, like magical realism type work. Because, like all of us, for example, every night we dream and we go to these
Other places.
other places. Like it's not magic in the sense of supernatural, because we all do it, but like what the hell is that?
Yeah.
You know? So,
Yeah.
it touches on the so many layers of existence. And in my own writing, I strive for that as well.
Excellent. Wow. Well, tell us about, and now I think I understand magical realism a little bit better,
Well,
the
I mean,
term.
yeah, I mean, sometimes I think it's defined in a number of ways, and most of the time, it's with a work that's essentially realist. But then there are these magical things that happen within the real context. So it's not like, Harry Potter or,
Mhm.
fantasy where it's completely another world. Like this is our world, and yet it touches into other worlds at the same time.
Little magical things happen. Yes, indeed, indeed. So tell me about your writing journey. How to just give us a briefly kind of what that looks like.
Okay, well, I guess I feel like each book that I've done is its own kind of entity, and has required things of me that make me keep growing as a writer. I mean, at least I hope so. Um, and one of the aspects that I was just touching on, that I strive to do in my writing is I really try to bring a lot of specific detail in the material world, but I also, I always feel the need to bring in something that speaks to those other states of consciousness, that aren't just the material, or those, happenings in life that somehow they're not explainable by our
Yeah, the norm.
the norm. Our culture is so face value material, but we exist in, a lot more than that. So in my own writing, yeah, I really strive for both of those things. I want the characters to seem real. I want the setting to seem real. And then I also want it to reflect the internal as well as the external. So that's not, maybe that's not exactly the journey, but in a way, like I'm always kind of shooting for that.
Yeah. No, that makes excellent sense. And I'm going to read your book with that in mind, but just as you were speaking, I can remember just in the opening of the House of Rougeaux, there was magical realism right from the beginning. So
Yeah.
I think you have just enriched my reading experience. I'm glad that we're talking about that now. So, Boy Falling, it's so interesting that you say that you were studying about the Harlem Renaissance, because the book I'm writing right now, which is called True Grace, takes place in 1924 during the Harlem Renaissance.
Oh my goodness.
Another little connection we have. So,
Yeah, yeah.
tell me about Boy Falling.
So Boy Falling continues. Um, it continues with some of the characters from House of Rougeaux. House of Rougeaux has a big family tree through several generations. And Boy Falling continues with the family tree through the eyes of three protagonists. One of the protagonists, Gerard, is just a little boy in House of Rougeaux. And then in Boy Falling, we see him grow up. And he's a young man during the Harlem Renaissance in New York City. He's already sort of come of age, but he's like comes into his maturity and his artistic maturity in that time and place, which is so rich. And then he leaves and he goes to Paris to pursue um, his artistic dreams, which will have other opportunities there. And then the story unfolds from there. And then at a certain point, while he's there, he becomes haunted by dreams of a boy falling through space.
Hmm.
So there we get, one of the ways in which the magical realism comes in a bit into that book. I won't give away, I guess, how those dreams um, are part of the story,
Mhm.
but it gives you an idea, and that's where the title comes from.
Boy Falling. Oh, that sounds so intriguing.
And then, sorry, I'm jumping in. And then the other two protagonists are, so he has a half sister named Jeanette, and then she's the second protagonist. And then the third is one of her two daughters, who is very young in the story, a budding artist herself. Her name is Maudie. So that's the three. And then their stories are all intertwined.
Does most of the story take place in Paris or in Harlem?
It's both.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's very exciting. Yeah, in True Grace that I'm writing, it's actually based on my grandmother, her real life, and so I'm calling it a fictionalized memoir.
Oh,
But
amazing.
yeah, but so the story takes place in Harlem, in Jamaica, and in England. And
Oh, incredible.
yeah, it's
Well, and a lot of parallels, really. I mean, as far as the big different locations. Yeah, and of course, in House of Rougeau, um, Martinique, the Caribbean island of Martinique is a very key location where a lot happens. So
yeah, it was.
that's really cool. Actually, do you know the book Half Broke Horses?
Say it again.
Half Broke Horses. Jeanette Wells, she wrote The Glass Castle. Half Broke Horse, which is a memoir, and then Half Broke Horses is she calls it like a true life novel. It's about her grandmother.
Oh,
It's a beautiful book. I mean, I can't wait to read yours.
oh, I'm going to read that one then, because I'm very interested in this notion of a true story that's a novel. Um,
Hey,
and mostly it's because I can't know everything that she said or thought or felt, but I know the facts of her life and I have great
Right,
source material. So
right.
it's been,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's gonna be a great book.
Well, I thank you so much for participating in this. Oh, are you working on something right now?
Oh, I am, I'm working on an illustrated novella about rats. Mhm. Yeah, this will sound very strange. Here's one. This is Vera Hines. She's the story is about high society and not so high society rats living in New York City um, in the early 20th century. It's kind of an homage to Edith Wharton. Do you know her work? She wrote The Age of Innocence and
Yeah.
many other books. So I love Edith Wharton. Um, the rats. This is Julius Rat. That's his name. He's one of the main characters. And here's another couple characters. This is Ambrose and Cressida Bentley. Um, all the characters like a little bit despicable, but they grow. They become better. So
Oh. I have to just say this. I am so glad that I have met you. You are
okay.
you are such a creative and interesting and talented woman, and I am honored to have met you.
It
And
makes me blush here.
it's really been, I mean, my grandson, who I'm interviewing as well,
Oh,
he is an illustrator and a writer. He's only 14 years old. And
oh,
I'm going
wonderful.
to tell him about you and your rats.
Actually, Maudie, the third protagonist in Boy Falling, is also 14 and an artist. So anyway, may have nothing else in common with your grandson, but
Yeah.
likewise, I'm so excited to learn more about your work and read your books. And yeah,
Well, thank
I'm
you.
so
Thank you, Jenny. And thank all of you for listening in to this lovely conversation. Obviously, I had a great time with this conversation. If you have questions for either Jenny or me, you can go to my website, Karen E. Osborne. There's an E there, KarenEOsborne.com, and just type it in. And Jenny, how can our audience get in touch with you?
um, I have an active Instagram page, so it's just at Jenny Jaeckel on Instagram. And then also my website is jennyjaeckel.com, and there's all the all the info about my work, etc., is there, and ways to contact me too. So
And spell your last name for everybody so that they will type it into the Google correctly.
thank you, because much, even harder than pronouncing my name is spelling it. So people that have known me for years still get it wrong. So okay, so Jenny, Jenny, Jaeckel, Jaeckel.
Excellent. Thank you again, and thank all of you. We hope you'll come and join us again for the next episode of What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? Bye.